When we all first experienced it, Bioshock Infinite's ending left us speechless. Then, after a while, the first things we were able to say about it was, wait, what? And then the rush came among YouTubers, forum posters, and pretty much anyone who had played the game to try to explain what just happened in Bioshock Infinite's ending. The question that nobody seemed to ask, though, that would have given us all our answers and saved us a lot of trouble trying to figure out timelines, is not what happened with the Bioshock Infinite ending, but why it happened. The short answer is lazy writing, but a lot more goes into that. Before we can even get to the actual ending, though, we really should go over the penultimate scene in Bioshock Infinite, or the last part where we're actually playing a game and not just playing an interactive cinematic walking simulator, which is the Horde mode. Credit to Bioshock Infinite, it figured out a way to stop being a linear shooter for just a moment, but now we're playing an incredibly forced, incredibly lazy Horde mode. We even abandoned the concept of skyhooks, which you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, aren't those skyhooks right there? Well, yes, they are, but if you look at the map and look at the gameplay, you're never in a spot where you can conveniently use the skyhooks to effect. You're either too close to enemies to get on and do a proper skyhook strike, or you're in a place where it's pointless to use the skyhook to travel because you're already at where you need to be. You'll never really need to rush anywhere anyway, because the enemy waves follow a very predictable pattern. Pickups are extremely liberal, and you can always just pull a few out of thin air if you need them. And after a while, it becomes obvious that you're not actually waiting for the hand of the prophet to get anywhere, but you're waiting for the waves of enemies to finish because it's intrinsically tied to finishing the final sequence of the game. The real frustrating aspects of this final phoned-in dull as dishwater Horde mode, though, are 1, you have to use Songbird. Songbird is just in there for the sake of being in there since they already put him on all the posters and promos. It's pretty much just wait 120 seconds or so to press F to destroy the Zeppelins, which gets into 2. You can't force your hand at advancing this, you have to wait for Songbird. You can damage the Zeppelins if you're really precise with the rocket launcher, but for some reason, no matter how many times I tried, you can never land a killing blow on any of the Zeppelins you need to destroy to advance the Horde. There's also smaller issues like, okay, why on earth is the Hand of the Prophet's power plant on the top deck? What ship used in any sort of combat has ever had their boiler room, their power plant, anything that makes a ship go placed right on the top deck? Like, go look at, say, World of Warships. How many of those ships have their boiler room on top deck? Or look at pretty much any given sci-fi game. You never see it. And that's because this is so alarmingly obviously designed as a game level first and as a real world thing second. You don't even initially notice this, and I didn't even notice this on my many playthroughs of Bioshock Infinite until I started looking through the footage for this video, because you're so frustrated at the previously stated Horde mode mechanics and how you have to use Songbird in order to finish it, that you never notice, oh wow, this is overtly designed like a video game level and not like an actual warship. And that's really disappointing because there are a lot of contemporary examples within the same set of genres of Bioshock Infinite, including a previous Bioshock game no less, where, yeah, you can make something a very good video game level and also have it be something that you could logically see people using, living in, etc. And this all ends with you finally getting to the bow of the ship waiting for Elizabeth to trot up forward with you, thinking, oh, thank God, it's over. Or is it? But before we get to what's the easiest part of this video to get into, let's rewind a bit more and figure out why on earth are we stuck in a Horde mode to get to a very interesting ending sequence. Plot-wise, Bioshock Infinite really didn't have anywhere else to go. We can't really make a resolution with the Vox because, oops, we killed Daisy Fitzroy. We can't really make a resolution with Comstock or the citizens of Columbia because we literally just killed Comstock about 10 minutes ago. We can't even make a sort of bid to escape was Cornelius Slate because we either killed him or our lack of action led him to being killed. We killed off literally everyone we could possibly reach a resolution with, leaving all the factions in Bioshock Infinite metaphorically headless and just running around shooting everyone. Heck, we probably would have put a few bullets into the Lutece twins if we were able to do that somehow. This is actually kind of ironic concerning how a lot of things in the world of Bioshock Infinite have zero consequences, as we talked about in a previous video, but here, we actually do have consequences for our actions, which is, we killed everyone we could have ended the story with, so now we're stuck with this horde mode non-ending, where we're going to have to pull the obscene and supernatural out of a hat to make everything wrap up nicely. But for all I know, I maybe have this completely wrong and backwards. Maybe that last 15-minute segment of Bioshock Infinite was what they had planned out from the very beginning, and they decided to just work backwards from there, resulting in what is seemingly a completely inconsequential plot up until you get into that horde mode because there's no one to resolve anything with. So here we are, standing at the bow of Comstock's Dreadnought, and we're gonna tell Songbird to just destroy the siphon, holding all that energy sucked off of Elizabeth with the promise that this will reveal everything. Except we never had that promise given to us or any reason to believe it. For all we know, blowing that thing up could just create like a time paradox or a black hole. It's never explicitly stated that all the power is just going to go straight back into Elizabeth and she's gonna become a demigod. But that's what happens anyway, and stop that with your silly thinking. I'm not going to get too into the timeline of Infinite or lack thereof, because that's already been covered and the point is kind of a moot. The real issue is how Bioshock Infinite uses multiple timelines and realities to try and cover up their story. By Infinite's own logic, all Elizabeth does at the end is create a time paradox, because even in her omniscience, she would have realized that killing Booker in the river, thus negating all the events, would also negate her existence in all the other forms. Therefore, she would never go back to stop Booker. And that gets retconned anyway immediately afterwards in the DLC. And moreover, if Elizabeth really could see all the doors, or however they put it in Burial at Sea, she'd realize that there'd also be an infinite amount of universes where by some way, Booker gets out of being murdered by all of Elizabeth's doppelgangers. And that kind of goes into how Irrational Games is not treating the concept of infinity right. The issue with using infinity in anything is that, just like all the monkeys pecking on typewriters, you're not going to have one copy of the complete works of Shakespeare, you're going to have an infinite amount of copies of the complete works of Shakespeare. You're gonna have an infinite amount of copies for every script of every video I ever have and will make. You're going to have infinite of infinite of infinite. You can't multiply things or associate things with the concept of infinity like that. And Irrational gets out of this by just hand-waving the ending in Bioshock Infinite away anyway. So why did we go through all this hassle? If anything, when you look at the ending of Bioshock Infinite, it's just a lot of banging on pots and pans and flashing bright lights, trying to convince you that something meaningful has happened, when in reality, we're just gonna farm this out for another short story, and then maybe in 5 to 6 years, we're gonna have another Bioshock sequel by 2K whatever now that Ken Levine's flown the coop. So if the ending of Bioshock Infinite is bad, but inconsequential at least for Bioshock Infinite, why should we care? Well, because it's an enabler. When everyone saw a huge franchise like Bioshock go and do the big, loud, obnoxious non-ending, they realized, oh, we're allowed to do that too. If Bioshock can do that, we can do that. And now, you see a bunch of games where you should have gotten proper closure at the end, or where there should have been something where the rules and actions have consequences. Instead, you get hurricanes and nuclear explosions and just all these big, lazy non-endings. And personally, I am pretty fed up with so many people trotting around saying, oh, this is great, this is great. It just distracted you at the end with pretty lights and loud noises so that hopefully you wouldn't notice the lazy writing in the plot. And to be fair, that is sometimes a non-issue. The majority of times we're playing video games, we're playing a game for the gameplay, not the plot. But as the advent of interactive storytelling, immersive worlds, walking simulators, whatever you want to call them, is becoming more and more of an acceptable genre of game, this won't be acceptable. And even though we've got a lot of bigger fish to fry right now in the gaming industry concerning issues we need fixed, this is still something we need to be very aware of, and we need to call it out when it happens. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you see, be sure to like the video and leave a comment, or if you think I'm full of garbage, go ahead and dislike the video and leave your comment as to why I'm full of garbage. Subscribe so you can be up to date on all my videos, and if you really liked me, feel free to support me on Patreon. In the meantime, have yourself a good one. Please get out. This is not a space for kitties. This is where the popcorn goes. What if I did this? What if I did this? Yes. Ha! And stay out.